Hey, I'm Mia Hemstad. I'm a wife, I'm a mom of 2 kids, and I'm a trauma-informed self-care coach. I also live with diagnosed PTSD and depression. I started sharing my mental wellness journey online in 2017 when I was diagnosed with postpartum depression and anxiety. And since then, I've heard from hundreds of women who all struggle with the same thing, putting ourselves last. This is a struggle that's keeping so many women burned out and unhappy, through no fault of our own, by the way. I've been working on my own healing as an abuse survivor since 2013. But when I became a mom, I really started to do the inner work of figuring out why I was putting myself last and how to start prioritizing myself for the first time in my life. This podcast is about sharing all of those lessons with you. So if you're interested in hearing honest stories, life advice, and inspiration that encourages you to make your health, happiness, and well-being a priority, then definitely stick around. Welcome to your No Longer Last journey. Hey everybody, it's been a long time. The last time we chatted, I said I was going to be back in July, and now it's September. So basically, I took the whole summer off, and that was definitely not my plan. But if you caught the last episode, you know that I was really struggling with my sleep, and it got to the point where by August, I literally felt like if we could run a scale of like 0 being insomnia, not sleeping at all, to 10 being I slept amazing, I was around a 1 for 30 whole days. It was a very, very rough month. And I feel like I need to do a whole nother episode on that when it comes to just like psychiatry, medication, my experience with it. I'm on an antidepressant now, an anti-anxiety medication, and I'm feeling so much better. And I want to do an episode in greater detail on that because I think there's so much stigma. But today, I want to talk about suicide prevention and specifically healing from depression, anxiety, and low self-worth in motherhood. I think that there is a unique challenge for those of us who are moms who struggle with mental health challenges because, well, we're raising human beings, and then it can make us feel like we're inadequate, and society might think we're inadequate. I personally have had a pediatrician call social services to my home, and I've had my home searched for drugs, and I've had my children checked for marks and things like that. Of course, they found absolutely nothing. But I just want to say that the reason why this episode is specifically about suicide prevention and healing and dealing with mental health challenges for moms is because we have this added burden of people having us and holding us to a much higher standard. And that standard can be extremely debilitating and can actually make our mental health worse. It can make our self-worth worse. And it can just make us feel like even more of a failure, and it exacerbates the problem. So I want to dedicate this episode today to that, especially since September is Suicide Prevention Month. And if you've been following me for a long time, you know I've had 2 instances with very strong suicidal ideation to the point of really thinking about ending my life. And I do not say that lightly. And I say that because I really think we need to reduce the stigma around that. And guess what? You know, I'm still a loving, wonderful mother, even though I have these challenges. And I think it's ridiculous for society to expect that when you become a mom, all of a sudden you're not a human who has challenges. I'm also an abuse survivor, and I know that a lot of my mental health challenges stem from that, from being a child who wasn't taken care of, who has experienced abuse and neglect, and what that does to your self-worth and self-esteem. So today I want to give you some practical strategies, some tips, some advice, to hopefully help you feel less alone and more supported if you are also on a journey of trying to manage your depression, anxiety, or any other mental health challenges that you might be facing. So the first thing I want to share with you is that suffering, feeling worthless, feeling anxious all the time, feeling sad all the time, feeling like you're a terrible mother, it is not normal. And I know that might sound very obvious to some of you, but for a lot of us who are in it and who've been suffering for a long time, especially if you're a childhood abuse survivor and you've been suffering is all you know, struggling is all you have normalized this. This is normal in your nervous system. Chaos, harm, hurt, pain, sadness, griefs, it's all normal for us. And I need you to know that it's not normal and that an easier, better, safer, happier life is out there and it's available to you. I will never forget one time I was talking to a doctor because I was trying to, it's like I have all these problems like digestion, migraines, sleep problems, and I was going to a physical doctor to try to get my ailment solved. And she, thankfully being a functional medicine doctor, looked at the whole body and knew that I had gone through significant trauma. And she said, Mia, I really think that it's time that you look into psychiatry. She's like, I can't tell you to take medication, but I think that you should look into it because you do not need to white knuckle your way through life. You do not need to be holding on so tightly that you can barely breathe. You shouldn't be getting through each day like by, holding your breath. And it just, she saved my life that day telling me that. It gave me permission to stop acting like this is just a physical thing, to stop acting like I could just fix this with diet, to stop acting like I could just fix this by going on some sort of a yoga retreat. And listen, I think those things are beautiful and amazing. I recently stopped eating almost all dairy. I eat no gluten. I drink very little caffeine. I'm all about diet. I'm all about holistic. If you know me, you know I practice yoga almost every day. I miss queen like exercise as much as you can. And I believe that we need to treat mental health the same way we treat physical health. And if that means that you need medication, if that means you need a therapist, then that is worth the investment because you're worth the investment. So please know that you don't need to white knuckle your way through life, and it is not normal to be in so much pain. An easier, happier life is available to you. The second thing I want to share with you is that you shouldn't wait until you feel worthy of help. When I was really struggling with postpartum depression and anxiety, I felt completely worthless. I already had struggles with my self-worth when I, just in general, as an abuse survivor, right? Your worth is taken out of you and you feel completely worthless. When your parents are not taking care of you the way that you should be. And then on top of that, when I was about to marry the love of my life, 3 weeks before our wedding, my in-laws told him to cut off the wedding because their opinion is that I guess they just didn't like me. And that's okay. Not everyone needs to like me, but I found it really strange that they wanted to do that. And the reason why I share that is because I remember my self-worth took such a hit that day when I found that out. And it just made me feel disposable. And I share all of this because I want you to know that self-worth challenges are never like a one-time thing. Usually it's a culmination of a lot of things. And then when I became a mom and I was struggling to bond with my kids and I was struggling to do all the frickin' sensory activities, organic meals, no screen time, outdoor play, and the many, many things that all the specialists tell us we're supposed to do in order to be good moms, and I was struggling to do those things, then I felt even worse. And I thought that in order to get out of this rut of feeling worthless, which was fueling my suicidal ideation, that I needed to wait until I felt like I was worth taking care of in order to take care of myself. But what I found over the last 10 years of healing is that you actually need to, this is one of those times where you have to fake it till you make it. You have to take care of yourself as if you already believe you're worth it. You have to take care of yourself, especially when you don't feel like it. And what I found was that eventually all of those acts of self-care started to reinforce the fact that I was worth it. It was as if the behavior of taking care of myself said, oh, we must be worth something because we're showering our body today. We must be worth something because we are asking for help so that we can sleep in. We must be worth something because we are deciding to go sit at a coffee shop because that brings us joy on a Saturday morning instead of folding 5 loads of laundry. All of those little acts of kindness, love, and care towards myself actually started to build up my self-worth. So please do not wait until you feel worthy of love and care to give yourself love and care. The opposite is actually what's most effective. The next thing I want to share with you is to please don't go through this alone. And I know this is when everybody says everyone needs therapy, but I know that therapy isn't accessible to everyone. I have gone through therapy through a government-sponsored program. I have gone through therapy through a philanthropy-sponsored program where I didn't have to pay. I have gone through therapy through a program that offered a massive sliding scale. And I've gone through therapy where I was able to private pay. But to be honest, I had to cancel that recently because it was so expensive. And now I'm seeing somebody who has a much more affordable option. This isn't to say that therapists are not allowed to charge what they are worth, because they absolutely should. But what this does mean is that A lot of times I hear people say, well, I can't afford therapy, so therefore I can't get any mental health support at all. Please do not buy into that. There are so many ways to get help. In the beginning of my journey, one of the things that my therapist actually recommended was that I go to a support group. And I sat at a table surrounded by abuse survivors. And when I told my story of how I was physically, emotionally, and sexually abused as a child, the looks on the faces of people around me wasn't one of shock or disbelief or you need to prove yourself or maybe it wasn't that bad. Everyone looked at me like they understood. And I cannot put into words how meaningful that was for me. Something inside of me healed in a way that I don't think anything else could have healed. I mean, I've sat across from therapists and I've told them this and I had that kind of like blank stare or maybe like a little bit of empathy of like, yeah, that sounds hard or something. But the people around that table of other survivors, they were like, oh my God, that is terrible. I'm so sorry. Me too. That happened to me too. And I cried and I healed, and that support group cost nothing. It was a donation-based support group. So what I'm trying to say is whether you choose therapy or coaching or a support group or whatever, you need to be proactive about seeking out support so that you don't go through this alone, because healing is a community journey. It is not meant to be done alone, because the loneliness, I swear, makes it feel so much harder and so much more difficult. The next thing I want to share with you is to please don't overwhelm yourself with a massive list of things to do. I feel like when we try to embark on this process of healing depression and anxiety, which, let's be honest, for a lot of us has been going on for decades, we think we're going to heal it in a weekend retreat. It's probably going to take just as long to heal it as it did to make the wound. And so I want you to remember that. It's probably going to take just as long to heal it as it did to make the wound. It takes time. And so when we start off this process and we're like, I'm going to have a morning routine. I'm going to wake up at 5. I'm going to journal for 30 minutes, do yoga for 30 minutes. And then I'm going to drink a green juice. And then I'm going to take a shower. And then I'm going to go on a walk. And then I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. We set ourselves up for failure. And a lot of times we're moms. We don't have time for that. If I'm being honest with you, the only thing that I do for my wellness in the morning, and I'm only on day 3, is I put my kitchen table chair outside on my balcony, I shut the door, I set a timer for 10 minutes, and I just sit there in peace and quiet for 10 minutes. That's what I do. And then I'm unloading the dishes and doing laundry right after that. We have to be realistic. So what I want you to think about when it comes to your self-care, when it comes to pulling yourself out of the depression and anxiety or overwhelm or whatever it is you're facing, I want you to think about cornerstone habits. Cornerstone habits is the one habit that's going to create a domino effect and make the healing process a little bit easier as you go down the line. For me, and what I always recommend to my clients, is sleep. Sleep is the cornerstone habit that affects all the other habits. When I sleep better, I'm more likely to exercise. When I exercise, I'm more likely to have an appetite and eat. And I'm more likely to shower because I get sweaty. And when I shower, I'm more likely to get dressed for the day. When I get dressed for the day, I feel good and I'm more likely to have the emotional capacity to connect with my kids and to do better at work. So you see what I'm saying? Figure out what that cornerstone habit is for you. And if you're like me and you have PTSD and you struggle with chronic nightmares, sleep is very, very hard. And for a long time, I wasn't taking it seriously, which is why I had to take a break from this podcast and seek help. So right now I'm a candidate potentially for hormone replacement therapy, which might be helping with a progesterone imbalance I might have that might be affecting my sleep and anxiety. But currently, in the meantime, I just started on an anti-anxiety medication and I've noticed that it's been helping me sleep. It's taking me from a 1 out of 10 to a 4 out of 10. Is it perfect? No, but it's the reason why I'm able to show up today. And by dealing with that cornerstone habit of improving my sleep, I noticed my mood has gotten better and I'm just feeling better overall. So think about that one cornerstone habit and work on that. The next thing I want to share with you, which is the last thing, it's to embrace the messiness of healing. A lot of times, especially us perfectionists who crave order because we grew up in a chaotic environment, we want things to be linear. I want you to know that healing is going to have peaks and it's going to have valleys. And when the valley happens, I don't want you to think that you failed. I want you to say, this is part of the process and there is something that I have to learn here. And this is not to silver line your pain. I absolutely hate when people say that there's a silver lining in everything. That's BS. If anything, when I'm in a valley and I'm really sad and I'm going through a big trigger or I'm feeling really rejected because I don't have a parent figure that I get to turn to and I've been failed by parent figures in my life and I'm feeling that. What I learn in that valley is I give myself the opportunity to be sad. And for me, that's a huge win because I have had to be strong my whole life. I have had to be strong all the time. And so to allow myself a moment, a day, a weekend, a week, a month of vulnerability, or like for instance, this summer when I took a break from the podcast, even though the ambitious perfectionist side of me told me, Mia, you're failing. You're not showing up for your audience. You're not doing enough. I told myself, I need the chance to not be strong here. I need the chance to focus on my health and well-being right now. I need to focus the little bit of energy I have on myself right now. That messiness, that valley was important to the process. So I want you to embrace the messiness of the process. And I want you to know that when you're in the valley, you did not fall off track. The track is in the valley. It's at the peak, it goes into the valley, and it comes back on the peak. You've never left the track. So please take that mindset of hustle culture of there's a track and when you don't do the perfect thing, you're off track. That's a lie. You have never fallen off track. As long as you are committed to your health, happiness, and well-being, you are always on track. You are not a failure. You're a human being on a difficult journey without any proven blueprint because the fact of the matter is healing is individual and unique and your process is going to be different from my process. The last thing I wanted to share with you, I know I already said it was the last thing, but I forgot this really important piece. And that is that there is no morning routine or medication, doctor, therapist. There's no one thing that's going to solve all your problems. A lot of times when I'm encountering clients, I feel like they want to hear the one thing that's going to solve it all because they want, again, this very messy journey to be as simple as possible. And in my 10 years of working on myself and going on my healing journey, there is no one thing. Healing is a combination of things. For me right now, it's therapy, it's some very serious boundaries, it's knowing what my values are, having a few cornerstone habits, medication, and yeah, that's the combo right now that's working for me. And that combination is going to change, it's going to keep changing, and that's part of the process, and that's okay. So that's all I have for you for today's episode. I hope you found it helpful. I'd love to hear from you via Instagram DM or email if you have feedback for me. And I also want to remind you that my coaching program, the No Longer Last Journey, my 12-month deep dive coaching program is 20% off. I am not going to be offering this steep of a discount until August 2025. So this discount expires September 8th, 2024, which is in a couple of days. And I'll leave a link in the show notes and all that so that you can check it out. And I'm also offering free access to the first class of the program, totally free. Check out the class. It really lays out the whole program and gives you a feel for it. And that access to that class also expires at the same time, September 8th, 5 p.m. Eastern. So I hope you'll take advantage of that offer. I would love to be your coach. And I'll see you next time. Bye.